Hello everyone, I'm Aubrelius of SYNTHFOX, and this is how I use ebb and flow to make interesting envelopes for classic keyboard-driven modular patches. I have a rather classic setup of the generator as a VCO going to sledgehammer as a filter/VCA/distortion thing. This Arturia key step has a volt per octave output that I patched to the generator's volt per octave input, so now I can play the 12-tone scale. But the tone never stops. Some envelope has to be used to shape each note as a separate musical event. Today we will look at ebb and flow as a twisted take on a conventional envelope generator for a keyboard. First, I patched the key step gate output to the flow function trig input. Pressing a key will now trigger the flow slope. Next, I patched the max output to the sledgehammer level CV input. Max is a maximum voltage selector, and if nothing is patched into its two inputs, it automatically grabs the ebb and the flow slope. And I'm going to throw ebb into the mix later to spice things up. And there you go. However, there is one issue now. I cannot start a new note before the current note finishes playing. That is, until the flow slope comes to its end. So for a more conventional envelope feel, it's best to use the gate input. Now, gating the flow slope makes it stay at its peak as long as the gate is present, so as long as I press the key, it is sustained at maximum voltage. Also, the slope can now be immediately re-triggered during its fall. Playing staccato will make flow complete a full single cycle, falling immediately after reaching its peak, as if the trig input was used. This is a nice moment to explore slope shapes. The ebb section of the module has a dedicated shape control knob. No such knob is seen on the flow side, but you can still alter the flow slope shape too. If nothing is patched into the rise or fall CV inputs, the attenuverters will act as shape controls for the slope's rise and fall portions respectively, acting like two shape knobs. Turning the attenuverters counterclockwise yields logarithmic response. The slope will rise more suddenly and feel more like a smoothed-out gate. Turning the attenuverter clockwise turns the slope more exponential, usually associated with snappy, percussive sounds. The linear response at noon is a nice middle ground too. Now to make the final envelope more interesting by adding the ebb slope into the mix. To tie its timing to flow, I will use the flow up output. It lights up whenever the flow slope rises or is sustained at peak. I use the async timing input so that the ebb slope fires again whenever flow is retriggered, even if it didn't finish its own decay cycle yet. Now the max mixture of both slopes from the max processor first has a short pluck produced by ebb, followed by a more leisurely long flow slope. Now I want to expressively modulate the envelope using the key steps mod strip. The Omni input can be used to control the overall envelope's length, as it affects both ebb decay time and flow rise and fall times. After I patch the mod strip CV output from the keyboard to the Omni CV input, I can easily control the envelope's overall length. So is it possible to go more extreme than that with ebb and flow? Why, of course it is! We can start by using the loop control input instead of the async trig input on ebb. This will make ebb loop during the attack portion of flow, producing multiple plucks before flow reaches its peak and out-voltages it at the max processor. Ebb can also be made to loop throughout the entirety of the flow slope. Simply patch the flow end output to ebb's loop control instead of up. Then turn on the ebb loop switch. The end output stays low during the entire flow slope and goes high when it ends. We can use this to turn off the ebb looping when the flow slope ends. One last trick I will show today is to use the flow slope output and put it to ebb's time CV input. This makes ebb become faster or slower depending on the attenuverter position as the flow slope rises, and vice versa when it falls. And there you have it! At least 3 ideas of a complex envelope with control voltage over all of its timings by patch programming the ebb and flow module. Use these as a starting point of your own crazy slope adventures. Thank you for your time today. I've been Aubrey, catch you later.